This person is about to tell you everything. They can no longer hide what they feel. For years, the soul has carried its secrets beneath layers of conscious restraint, beneath the masks worn to meet the world. But the self, in its relentless truth, does not tolerate lies forever. There comes a moment when the psyche, like a river beneath ice, forces its way to the surface. Feelings that were once whispered only in the quiet chambers of the heart now demand to be spoken. They arise not from mere impulse, but from the profound call of the inner world, a world that seeks to reconcile what has been divided. The conscious mind, with all its reason and logic, cannot contain the depth of what stirs beneath. The emotions that emerge now are the shadow of the self, the hidden aspects of being that have long awaited recognition. We all know this experience in fragments: the sudden confession, the unguarded word, the trembling voice. It is as though a veil has been lifted, revealing the hidden patterns that have guided thoughts, actions, and silences. In revealing these truths, this person is not simply speaking of personal feeling. They are unveiling the complex architecture of the human soul itself. There is courage in this act, a courage that goes beyond the superficial. To speak what is hidden is to face the possibility of rejection, misunderstanding, even fear. Yet, it is also the first step toward wholeness. For every truth expressed, every emotion acknowledged, is a thread woven back into the fabric of the self. And as the self is reconstituted in awareness, the individual becomes more alive, more authentic, and more capable of genuine connection. This revelation is not just a gift to others, but a reclaiming of the inner world. It is an initiation into a deeper understanding of oneself, and acceptance that what has been repressed or denied carries the seeds of growth. The truths we fear to reveal often contain the very keys to transformation. And when a person can no longer hide what they feel, they are crossing the threshold from shadow into light, from division into integration. The act of speaking, of unmasking, is a sacred encounter. In it, the heart and mind converge. The chaos of unspoken emotion, long confined and misunderstood, finds order through articulation. And those who witness this revelation are called to witness not just the word, but the courage, the vulnerability, and the profound humanness behind them. This moment is a reminder that the human spirit is never static. It moves toward expression, toward reconciliation, toward authenticity. What is hidden cannot remain hidden indefinitely, for the psyche is always in pursuit of its own truth. And when a person can no longer conceal what they feel, they offer us a mirror, showing the silent urgencies, the unspoken longings, and the transformative power that dwell within every human heart. The emergence of hidden truths is a process both inevitable and profound, a movement of the psyche that cannot be restrained by the superficialities of social expectation or the careful constructions of the conscious mind. For years, perhaps decades, emotions and thoughts lie beneath layers of defense, beneath masks crafted to navigate the world, beneath the polite silences and measured expressions that allow one to blend seamlessly with others. Yet these hidden truths are not inert. They are alive, quietly shaping decisions, influencing perception, directing impulses, and coloring interactions in ways that the conscious mind can scarcely perceive. They exist in the shadows of the self, forming a complex undercurrent that flows beneath the surface of daily life, often unnoticed, yet ever present, waiting for the moment when circumstances, intuition, or the inner voice itself compels them toward revelation. This emergence is not random, nor is it merely a reaction to external events. It is the natural movement of the psyche toward integration, the insistence of the self that what has been divided and denied must be acknowledged, brought into the light, and recognized as part of the whole. In every human being, there is a dimension of experience that is often left unspoken, a domain of the soul that resists easy categorization or explanation. These hidden truths may be desires long suppressed, fears carefully concealed, grief too heavy to bear aloud, or joy too sacred to reveal. They are the threads of the inner life that have been tucked away to maintain harmony, to avoid conflict, to preserve an image, or to protect oneself from judgment. Yet, as time passes, as the weight of concealment grows, these truths press inward, demanding recognition. They begin as whispers, faint yet persistent, emerging in dreams, in fleeting moments of insight, in the subtle tensions of the body, in the unguarded expressions of eyes or posture. They are the echoes of the authentic self calling insistently, urging one to confront what has been hidden, to name what has been unnamed, to acknowledge what has been denied. The process of emergence is often accompanied by discomfort, by a sense of disruption, by the unsettling awareness that the familiar structures of self and relationship are insufficient to contain the depth of what rises. This discomfort is not accidental. It is necessary. It is the tension between what has been concealed and what seeks expression, a friction that catalyzes awareness. In recognizing this tension, one begins to perceive the mechanisms by which truths were hidden, the rationalizations, the excuses, the habitual silences, the avoidance of confrontation, and the subtle compromises made to fit into a world that values control, composure, and conformity. It becomes apparent that concealment is never neutral. It shapes behavior, colors perception, and distorts understanding not only of oneself but of the relationships one holds with others. Hidden truths, though silent, are never absent, and their eventual emergence is a corrective, a balancing of the psychic scales, a reclamation of what has been marginalized within the self. When a person begins to reveal these hidden truths, it is a moment of profound psychological significance. The act of disclosure is not merely verbal, it is symbolic, a recognition of the self in its complexity, a refusal to reduce one's inner life to simplicity or to comply with the limitations imposed by fear or habit. Speaking what has been hidden is an assertion of existence, an acknowledgement that the inner world cannot be ignored, that it demands respect, and that the act of revelation itself is transformative. The hidden truths do not emerge in isolation. They bring with them the residues of the past, the echoes of childhood, the imprints of formative experiences, the unresolved tensions that have shaped the trajectory of life. In revealing them, one engages in a form of inner archaeology, uncovering layers of meaning and understanding, discovering the origins of patterns that have seemed inexplicable, and tracing the connections between past wounds and present realities. Moreover, the emergence of hidden truths is deeply relational. It affects not only the individual but also those who witness, receive, and respond to this revelation. Relationships that were once superficial, transactional, or constrained by unspoken agreements are transformed by the recognition of what has been concealed. The act of disclosure invites authenticity, demands honesty, and opens the possibility for genuine connection. It is a call to reciprocity, for the hidden truths of one person resonate with the hidden truths of others, creating a shared space of vulnerability, empathy, and understanding. The revelation is both intimate and universal, personal yet archetypal, reflecting the inherent structure of human consciousness that seeks expression, integration, and recognition. The psyche's insistence on revealing what has been hidden is also a process of individuation, the movement toward wholeness and self-realization. Hidden truths, by their very nature, are fragments of the self that have been ignored, denied, or projected onto others. When these fragments are acknowledged, named, and integrated, they contribute to the formation of a more complete, more authentic self. The act of emergence, therefore, is not a simple confession. It is a reconciliation of the inner landscape, a harmonizing of opposites, a negotiation between shadow and light, between desire and fear, between the conscious and the unconscious. It is a movement toward balance, a reclamation of personal power, and a step toward the fulfillment of one's potential. The process is rarely linear. Hidden truths may emerge gradually in small revelations, or they may burst forth suddenly in moments of emotional intensity or crisis. The timing is often unpredictable, yet always meaningful, reflecting the deeper rhythms of the psyche that operate beyond conscious planning. In these moments, one may experience fear, shame, relief, exhilaration, or confusion. The emotions that accompany revelation are as instructive as the truths themselves, offering guidance about what has been repressed, what has been denied, and what has been essential to recognize. In contemplating the emergence of hidden truths, one realizes that concealment and revelation are intertwined, that silence has a purpose, and that disclosure is not mere exhibition but a necessary dialogue between self and world. The hidden truths are both burden and gift, and their eventual emergence is a profound act of self-affirmation, a surrender to the inherent wisdom of the inner life, and a recognition that the psyche's ultimate aim is not control or concealment, but authenticity, integration. An understanding courage in vulnerability is a concept that carries within it the paradox of human existence, the very act of exposing oneself, of revealing what is most intimate and fragile, is both terrifying and liberating, both dangerous and transformative. It is the movement of the psyche toward authenticity, the willingness to step beyond the carefully constructed defenses and social masks that have long protected the individual from judgment, shame, or rejection. Vulnerability is not weakness. It is the acknowledgement of one's own complexity, the recognition of the tender, unguarded, and often chaotic aspects of the self that are usually hidden from the gaze of others. To embrace vulnerability is to confront the tension between fear and desire, between the longing for connection, the instinct for self-preservation, and to choose, despite the uncertainty, to reveal what is genuine and real. For most people, the inner life is carefully curated, a landscape of emotion, thoughts, and desires that is selectively visible to others. Layers of defense accumulate over time: rationalizations, justifications, habitual silence, and protective gestures that maintain equilibrium in relationships and social contexts. These defenses serve a purpose, shielding the individual from harm and maintaining the illusion of control. Yet beneath this carefully maintained facade lies a restless current, an inner reality that seeks expression, that demands recognition, that cannot be fully contained by artifice or pretense. Courage in vulnerability is the moment when the conscious self allows the unconscious truth to surface, when the heart, no longer willing to be confined, insists upon being heard. The process of revealing vulnerability requires a profound engagement with fear. Fear is not simply an obstacle, it is a guide, signaling the boundaries of the self, pointing toward areas that have been repressed or avoided, and marking the places where growth and transformation are possible. To speak one's truth, to disclose hidden emotions, is to enter a space where judgment is possible, where rejection might occur, and where the illusion of safety is temporarily suspended. Yet, it is precisely within this space that the psyche finds its power, for the act of facing fear, of daring to be seen in one's entirety, cultivate resilience, self-awareness, and the capacity for deeper, more authentic relationships. Vulnerability is a bridge between inner truth and external reality, a conduit through which the self communicates its needs, desires, and essence to the world. Courage in vulnerability is not an impulsive or reckless act. It is deliberate, conscious, and rooted in the understanding that concealment carries a psychic cost. The energy spent on suppression, avoidance, and pretense is immense, and it shapes behavior, distorts perception, and limits the capacity for genuine connection. When a person chooses to be vulnerable, they reclaim this energy, redirecting it toward self-expression, introspection, and meaningful engagement with others. The act of disclosure is a negotiation between the inner and outer worlds, a delicate balancing of honest timing and sensitivity, yet it is driven by an inner imperative that refuses to remain silenced. Vulnerability carries with it a relational dimension that is central to its significance. Humans are inherently social beings, and our need for connection, recognition, and understanding is profound. To reveal vulnerability is to invite others into a space of intimacy, to offer a glimpse of the self that is unadorned and unprotected, and to establish a foundation for authentic interaction. Relationships that are built on superficiality or avoidance cannot sustain the depth of human experience, and it is through vulnerability that trust, empathy, and reciprocity are cultivated. The willingness to show one's true emotions, fears, and longings encourages others to do the same, create a dynamic of mutual recognition and the potential for profound interpersonal transformation. At its core, courage in vulnerability is a form of self-knowledge. It demands that one confront the hidden aspects of the psyche, that one identify and acknowledge desires, insecurities, and wounds that have been ignored or suppressed. This confrontation is rarely comfortable. It often involves revisiting past experiences, confronting unresolved conflicts, facing the shadows that have been projected onto others or denied within oneself. Yet it is precisely through this confrontation that growth occurs, for acknowledging the full spectrum of one's inner life is a prerequisite for integration and wholeness. Vulnerability, therefore, is not an end in itself, but a process of self-realization, a journey toward the reconciliation of opposites within the psyche, and a movement toward the authentic expression of the self in the world. The courage to be vulnerable is often tested in moments of intensity, moments when emotions surge unexpectedly, when relationships are strained, or when external circumstances provoke fear or uncertainty. These moments reveal the depth of one's capacity for honesty, the resilience of the psyche, and the willingness to embrace discomfort for the sake of truth. Vulnerability is not a passive state. It is an active engagement with the unknown, a conscious choice to risk exposure for the sake of clarity, connection, and authenticity. It is an act of profound courage because it requires the relinquishment of control, the acceptance of uncertainty, and the acknowledgement that the self is never fully contained or understood. In embracing vulnerability, one also embraces the transformative potential inherent in human experience. Emotional exposure, when undertaken with consciousness and reflection, catalyzes growth, deepens empathy, and expands the capacity for self-compassion. Vulnerability allows the individual to confront limitations, to recognize patterns of avoidance, and to reclaim aspects of the self that have been marginalized or repressed. It is a process that reshapes the relationship between inner experience and outer expression, transforming fear into understanding, isolation into connection, and concealment into liberation. The courage to be vulnerable is, in essence, the courage to become fully human, to inhabit the complexity, depth, and richness of life without pretense or evasion. Vulnerability also serves as a mirror to others, offering a model of authenticity and courage that can inspire, challenge, and transform. When one person reveals their inner truths, it creates a space in which others can confront their own concealments, examine their fears, and engage more fully with their own authentic selves. This ripple effect extends beyond the individual, influencing relationships, communities, and even broader social contexts, reminding all who witness that honesty, courage, and openness are essential to the health and evolution of the human spirit. Integration of the self is a journey that demands honesty, patience, and the willingness to confront all facets of one's inner life. It is the movement of consciousness toward wholeness, the reconciliation of opposites, and the harmonizing of experiences that have long been compartmentalized or denied. Within each person exists a multitude of layers, some illuminated by awareness and others hidden in the shadow, carrying desires, fears, memories, and impulses that have been suppressed, forgotten, or projected outward. The act of integrating these disparate elements is neither linear nor simple, for it requires courage to face what has been avoided, strength to embrace what has been marginalized, and insight to discern the relationship between the visible and the hidden aspects of the self. Integration is not a destination but a process, a continual unfolding that allows the individual to move toward authenticity, balance, and inner coherence. The psyche naturally resists fragmentation, and when aspects of the self are denied or ignored, tension arises. This tension may manifest as anxiety, inner conflict, or repetitive patterns that interfere with relationships and daily life. It may appear as projection, where qualities one refuses to acknowledge within oneself or attribute to others, creating conflict, misunderstanding, and inner discomfort. These disturbances are signals from the deeper self, indicating that reconciliation is necessary and that the path to wholeness requires recognition and acceptance of all parts of the psyche, including those deemed undesirable, shameful, or contradictory. Integration is the deliberate encounter with these shadow elements, a process of claiming and understanding what has been hidden, and finding ways to harmonize conflicting tendencies without losing the integrity of the individual. Central to the process of integration is the recognition that no aspect of the self exists in isolation. Thoughts, emotions, memories, and instincts are interwoven, influencing behavior, perception, and relationships in subtle and overt ways. The self is a dynamic system, constantly evolving, and each hidden or repressed element exerts influence until it is acknowledged and understood. The process of integration involves careful observation, reflection, and dialogue with the inner world. It requires the capacity to sit with discomfort, to tolerate uncertainty, and to listen to the quiet urgencies that arise from within. These urgencies may present themselves as recurring dreams, fleeting thoughts, emotional reactions, or even physical sensations, all of which carry messages about what has been neglected or denied. By attending to these signals, one begins to map the contours of the inner landscape and to understand the ways in which concealed truths shape the outer life. The integration of the self is deeply relational as well. Each person's hidden aspects affect not only the individual but also those with whom they interact. Relationships often serve as mirrors, reflecting back the qualities that have been suppressed or disowned, providing opportunities for insight, growth, and reconciliation. The challenges, conflicts, and misunderstandings that arise in interpersonal dynamics often point to unresolved inner tensions, revealing the ways in which projection, fear, and avoidance have shaped perception and behavior. By acknowledging and integrating these aspects, the individual develops a capacity for empathy, understanding, and authentic engagement with others, creating relationships that are grounded in truth rather than illusion. Integration requires embracing both light and shadow, recognizing that the self is composed of polarities that must be reconciled rather than eliminated. Strength and vulnerability, reason and emotion, desire and restraint, joy and sorrow, these are not separate entities, but complementary forces that, when balanced, create a more complete and resilient self. The act of integration is therefore an act of synthesis, a weaving together of disparate threads into a coherent whole. It involves cultivating awareness, reflecting on experience, and making conscious choices that honor all aspects of the self, even those that have been uncomfortable or difficult to acknowledge. This process often involves confronting deeply held fears, painful memories, and unresolved conflicts. To integrate the self is to face the truth of one's life story, including the moments of failure, shame, and suffering that have been avoided or minimized. It requires courage to recognize patterns of avoidance, denial, and self-deception, and to understand how these patterns have shaped identity, behavior, and perception. Yet it is precisely through this confrontation that transformation occurs, for the acknowledgement of hidden truths allow the individual to release old patterns, reclaim personal power, and move toward a more authentic and conscious existence. Integration also involves the conscious engagement with creativity, intuition, and imagination, as these faculties often reveal the hidden aspects of the psyche in symbolic form. Dreams, visions, fantasies, and artistic expression provide a bridge between conscious awareness and unconscious material, offering insights into desires, fears, and potential that have not yet been fully realized. By attending to these symbolic manifestations, the individual can uncover patterns, identify unresolved conflicts, and gain access to inner resources that facilitate integration. The dialogue between conscious reflection and unconscious insight is central to the process, as it allows the self to assimilate what has been hidden and to move toward coherence and wholeness. The process of integrating the self is ongoing, a lifelong endeavor that evolves as the individual encounters new experiences, challenges, and opportunities for growth. It is not a process of perfection or completion, but of continuous engagement with the inner life, of acknowledging contradictions, embracing complexity, and cultivating awareness. Each step toward integration strengthens the capacity for resilience, empathy, and authenticity, create a foundation for meaningful relationships, purposeful action, and a deeper connection with the world. Furthermore, the integration of the self transforms one's relationship with the external world. When hidden aspects are acknowledged and harmonized, the individual becomes less reactive, less driven by unconscious impulses, and more capable of conscious choice. Decisions are informed by awareness rather than fear, by understanding rather than projection, and by a sense of wholeness rather than fragmentation. This alignment of inner and outer realities allows for a more coherent, authentic, and empowered engagement with life, in which actions reflect true self rather than the demands of concealment, avoidance, or fear. The journey of integration is both deeply personal and universally human. Every individual carries hidden truths, unacknowledged desires, and shadowed aspects of the psyche, and the process of bringing them into awareness is an essential part of human development. It is a movement toward authenticity, a reconciliation of opposites, and a cultivation of the inner resources necessary to navigate the complexities of existence. In embracing this journey, the individual discovers not only personal wholeness but also a profound capacity to relate to others, to understand the human condition, and to participate in life with presence, courage, and clarity. The transformative power of revelation lies at the heart of human experience, a force that reshapes the self, relationships, and perception of the world. When hidden truths are brought to light, when emotions long suppressed and desire long denied are finally acknowledged, there is a profound shift in consciousness. This shift is not merely intellectual or superficial. It penetrates the depths of the psyche, stirring currents that have been dormant, awakening parts of the self that have been marginalized, and opening the door to profound growth and transformation. Revelation is not an event confined to words alone. It is a process, a movement of the inner life toward authenticity, clarity, and integration, and it carries consequences that extend far beyond the moment of disclosure. Every human being carries within them aspects of the self that have been concealed, whether due to fear, shame, social conditioning, or the desire to maintain equilibrium in relationships and social roles. These concealed aspects, desires, vulnerabilities, contradictions, and unresolved conflicts exert influence, even when unacknowledged, shaping thoughts, behaviors, and perceptions in subtle and pervasive ways. The act of revelation, when one chooses to expose what has been hidden, interrupts the unconscious flow of these influences, bringing them into conscious awareness and allowing them to be confronted, understood, and integrated. In this way, revelation is both a disruption and a restoration, challenging old patterns while creating space for new ways of being. The power of revelation is deeply intertwined with courage. To reveal what has been hidden is to expose oneself to judgment, misunderstanding, and potential rejection. Yet it is precisely in the willingness to face these risks that the transformative potential is realized. Courage in revelation is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act in spite of it, to speak, to disclose, and to acknowledge the fullness of one's experience. This act of courage carries profound consequences for the psyche, for it allows the individual to reclaim energy that was previously invested in concealment, to align behavior with inner truth, and to cultivate a sense of integrity that strengthens the self. Revelation also functions as a mirror, reflecting back the hidden structures of the psyche. When emotions, desires, or truths are brought into light, they reveal the patterns, dynamics, and conflicts that have shaped thought and behavior. This reflective quality allows the individual to see the roots of habits, the origin of fears, and the interconnections between past experiences and present realities. It is a process of self-discovery, a confrontation with the mechanisms of defense, projection, and avoidance that have constrained the self, and an invitation to transcend limitation by embracing what has been neglected or denied. In revealing what is hidden, one gains insight not only into the content of the psyche, but also into the process by which the psyche operates, creating opportunities for conscious choice, transformation, and growth. The relational dimension of revelation is equally profound. Disclosure of hidden truths affects not only the individual but also those who witness and receive it. Relationships are often shaped by unspoken assumptions, projections, and silences, and the act of revelation interrupts these patterns, creating a new dynamic of openness, trust, and mutual recognition. By bringing hidden aspects into awareness, the individual invites others to confront their own concealed truths, to engage authentically, and to participate in a shared process of understanding. In this way, revelation has the power to transform communities, families, and social groups, fostering environments where authenticity, empathy, and connection are possible. Revelation carries with it a deeply symbolic and archetypal significance. Across human history, myths, stories, and spiritual traditions have emphasized the transformative potential of disclosure and insight. The uncovering of hidden knowledge, the descent into the depths of the self, and the subsequent emergence into clarity are central motifs in the human journey. These narratives reflect the universal structure of consciousness, the tension between concealment and exposure, and the necessity of revelation for growth, healing, and the realization of potential. When one reveals what has been hidden, they participate in a timeless process, enacting a pattern that resonates within the collective psyche and aligns the individual with the deeper currents of human experience. The transformative power of revelation is not limited to understanding or insight. It extends to action, creativity, and presence in the world. When hidden truths are acknowledged, energy previously devoted to concealment and avoidance is released, and the individual gains the capacity to act with clarity, intention, and authenticity. This liberated energy can be directed toward personal growth, creative expression, relationship building, and engagement with the broader world. Revelation catalyzes a reorientation of life, shifting priorities, deepening understanding, and fostering the courage to live in accordance with inner truth rather than social expectation, habit, or fear. Revelation also fosters integration, as the acknowledgement of hidden truths allows the self to reconcile fragmented aspects of experience. What was once denied or suppressed becomes a conscious part of the inner life, contributing to a sense of wholeness, coherence, and balance. This integration strengthens the capacity for self-reflection, emotional resilience, and meaningful engagement with life, allowing the individual to navigate challenges with greater awareness and insight. In this way, revelation is not an isolated act but a catalyst for ongoing development, a process that shapes the trajectory of the self in profound and lasting ways. The experience of revelation is often accompanied by intense emotion, ranging from relief and liberation to fear and uncertainty. These emotional responses are not incidental. They signal the significance of the truths being revealed and the depth of the psychic shift taking place. Emotions serve as guides, illuminating what is essential, what has been repressed, and what requires attention, and they provide the impetus for reflection, assimilation, and integration. By attending to the emotional resonance of revelation, the individual deepens their understanding of self, develops empathy for others, and cultivates the capacity to navigate complexity with awareness and sensitivity. Ultimately, the transformative power of revelation lies in its ability to create alignment between the inner and outer worlds, between the hidden and the expressed, and between potential and actuality. By acknowledging and revealing what has been concealed, the individual participates in a process that strengthens authenticity, fosters relational depth, and cultivates the capacity for conscious choice. Revelation is an act of courage, a form of self-knowledge, and a catalyst for growth, inviting the psyche to move beyond limitation, embrace complexity, and engage fully with the richness of human experience. The process of revelation, though challenging, carries the promise of liberation, connection, and transformation. It allows the individual to reclaim parts of themselves that were lost or ignored, to navigate relationships with greater honesty and empathy, and to participate in life with a renewed sense of purpose, clarity, and vitality. In revealing what has been hidden, one not only transforms the self but also contributes to the unfolding of authenticity and consciousness in the world, embodying the principle that truth, once acknowledged, is inherently transformative.